Welcome to the Centre for Legal Innovation's Legal Techy Tuesday series. We are very excited to have co-founders Andrew and Bill Wight from Adieu with us today. Andrew is also the CEO and Bill is the COO of Adieu. They will be giving a demonstration of their family law-focused legal tech and show how it is changing financial disclosure. Before I hand over to Andrew and Bill, a quick few housekeeping matters. Please switch off your webcams and microphones for the duration of the webinar. You will not be able to switch them on at any time unless Andrew or Bill permit you to do so. If you have any questions at any time throughout the webinar, you'll find a button at the bottom of your screen titled Q&A. Please feel free to jot down any questions. Andrew and Bill will see those and address them at the end of the session. And finally, a reminder that we will be recording this webinar. Again, welcome. Fabulous to have you here. And now over to Andrew and Bill.
Hi there. So we're Adieu, and we're going to show you something today that we've been working on that we're really excited about. And I think it's going to be something that can have a huge impact on how effective you are as a lawyer, but also on the experience that your clients have as well. So we're a little bit different. Adieu is a social enterprise. And what that means is that we exist primarily to create a social impact. But we do that in a way that has a business model with it that is self-sustaining. We're also a startup. And what that means is we use technology to make sure that the impact we have can be scalable and can be made available and accessible to as many people as possible. We've done a number of things which you may or may not have heard of. We built a robot called Lumi who supports people through separation and divorce for a period of 3 months, introduces them to human professionals. We've had just under 800 people be supported by Lumi through the process. We're currently doing a study with the University of Newcastle around the effectiveness of that and the use of virtual agents to support people in areas of high emotion and complexity. The next one is the Consensus Accelerator. That is a piece of technology that uses artificial intelligence to help separating couples to create financial agreements that are both legally sound and financially feasible. That project was the winner of the Altmar LexisNexis Thought Leadership Award. We did both of those initiatives through our legal practice, Adieu Legal. However, we've got a new initiative which we're going to talk about today, which is one-click disclosure. And that's quite a bit different from the others in that we're actually running that through Adieu Accounting, which is a separate entity. My name's Andrew. So really quick background. I've spent my entire career in design and innovation. Most of that has been spent in financial services and specifically in online banking. So I was lead experience architect at Barclays in London for the retail online banking systems. Done a lot of work with Barclaycard, Deutsche Bank. And if there was a theme in my career, I guess it would be making complex things simple for everyday people.
And I'm Bill. I'm a certified practicing accountant and tax agent. I've had about 25 years in litigation support. And included in that was disclosure. And it's disclosure that really inspired Adieu. The existence of Adieu, as Andrew said, it's a startup.
And so this is an area which is really crying out for innovation. And so if you look at the investments in legal tech, something kind of blew up between 2017 and 2018. I don't have 2019 here, and this is global, not Australia. But whilst this is really exciting, most of that investment and most of that innovation does not happen in family law. It's not a lucrative area of practice. And so there's a bit of a dearth of innovation in this particular space. You've got people like Fiona and Tim Kirkman who are doing some really interesting things. If you've not seen what they're doing, you should check that out as well. But there's not a lot more going on in the space. And so it's an area we think of huge need. And so that's really where we want to focus. So why disclosure? Why is this a problem that we actually need to solve? Well, to put it really simply, disclosure sucks. It's the bane of lawyers' lives. It's the bane of clients' lives. But the best analogy that we've actually heard is from one of the family lawyers who we work closely with. And he said that getting disclosure out of my clients is like pulling teeth. And I think that's a really apt analogy because it describes both the experience for the lawyer of having to go through disclosure, but it also describes the pain that the client feels going through disclosure. And so, whilst you think of the pain that you might experience as a lawyer or as a paralegal trying to get disclosure out of your client, spare a thought for the person who's actually in the chair as well. So the starting point for us in solving the problem of how we do disclosure better is this question. I'll let you in on a bit of an innovation secret for your firm. One of the biggest barriers to innovation is assumptions and constraints that no longer apply, that people just bring in their subconscious. And what that leads to is really incremental improvements that don't really move the needle. And so using a design thinking question like this one, how would it work if it was magic? Might seem a little bit naive, actually. What that actually does is it breaks you out of the incrementalism and helps you get to the essence of the problem. So if you are doing some innovation work in your firm, I would recommend using this as a design thinking tool and actually workshop around that question. It's one that I've used for some very big projects, some very big companies. It's a very powerful one. So we started out with this question: how would it work if it was magic? Be interesting to take a second yourself and think, if disclosure was magic, how would it work? So the answer that we got from all the lawyers that we spoke to at a push was this: if disclosure was magic, there would be a magical button that said get disclosure. I would type in my client's name and I would press said magic button and disclosure would appear. All the documents for that disclosure would be included. They would already be scanned. They would be named. They would be indexed. They would be filed and ready to drop into my practice management system. Why not? And while we're on a roll, we also want another magic button that if we press, it automatically shares everything we want to share with the other side, and we would be done. And so, as I said, that might seem a little bit naive, but we thought that this was such a good idea that we built it. We called it one-click disclosure, and it's what we want to demo to you today. I'm just going to give you a heads up. This is going to be a really short demo. This is a product that just works without you having to do much. We designed it that way. All right, so I log into my dashboard. There's one button here. That button should look familiar. That is the disclosure button. I click the button, I choose paperless, and now we're back to where we just left off. I provide my client's name, their email address, and their phone number. I provide the other side's name, and that's it. So that concludes the training section of the talk. You're now certified to use one-click disclosure. Terry will send out certificates to you later. No, in all seriousness though, that's all you need to know to use one-click disclosure. So there's the disclosure. If I click into it, Nothing's in there yet. The next day, I get an email which says that my disclosure is ready. I log in. There's my meta. Although we can see it now, it's full of items. Click into it. And there's my disclosure. Or my client's disclosure. So I can see a breakdown there of the actual net pool. I can see what it's made up of. We've got bank accounts, income, super, property, vehicles. If I click down into a particular item, so this is a Westpac account, you can see the details are all there. I can view documents, all the statements are there. They're all laid out in order. I can look at them individually. If I go into income, I can drill down into that. I can see tax returns. I see notices of assessment. These are all the things that can take months to extract out of your client, if they even know where to get them from. I can see super. I can click down. I can see super as reported to the ATO. We've had a number of one-click disclosure clients who have gotten super funds they didn't even know they had as part of this. I can see property details. I can drill down into the report, which is actually an automated market valuation. I can see real property description. As well as the details of the property, there is a value, an estimated value with a constant confidence interval. So you may still need to value a property if it's in dispute or if there's some other reason, but this is a really good start. I've got vehicle values and details. These are valuation estimates that lenders actually use to lend against, so they're pretty accurate. And so we take a step back here. We've spent all of 30 seconds on this matter so far, and we've got most of the disclosure lined up. And you might say, well, that's incredible, but I need to get this stuff into my practice management system, so I've got to pull it all down and rename it and put it in. So to do that, I just click Download Docs, I hit the button, and that indexes, orders, names all the files, and provides them back to me as a simple zip. There it is. Now it's done. I click the button, downloads. Jump across to my downloads folder. I unzip that zip file. Let me know as well, guys. Just shout out if you can't see my file system. I just flicked across to that. And so what you can see is everything in folders, what I'll do is I'll expand these out just to show you the depth of what's in there. So we got bank accounts, statements, named, ordered, credit cards, income, those tax returns, home loan statements, real estate details and valuation, super details, vehicle details and valuation. So that's all filed, it's named, it's prepared. You can drag that straight into Leap or Action Step or whatever your practice manglement weapon of choice is, and you're done. So we're now 60 seconds into this matter. We've got all our disclosure. We've organised it, indexed it, named it, filed it, and got our own practice management system. Now, in reality, even though it might look like magic, it's not actually magic. So we can't get everything that a client has. So you might have other things that you need to add to the pool, whatever it may be. If that's the case, that's no problem. I just click Add Item. I choose whatever it might be. I provide the details, the value, ownership. I can attach any documents I might have as well. And that just goes into the pool alongside everything else, and then works with the downloads, the balance sheet, everything. I can pull a balance sheet. To do that, I click the balance sheet button. That generates balance sheet, adds everything up. I'll pull that down. And I've got my balance sheet in the format that the family court uses. As I said, if we add anything to the pool, that automatically all goes in. Now, obviously I can't share this with the other side until I've actually worked it through with my client. So the client also has access. They can see this on their phone. They can see all the details in real time. They can click down into them just like you can. They can see the details. They can click down into the documents, and they can access everything. So they get access to it the next day, just like you, and it's really easy to work out whether you've got everything. Just on the client, actually, one of the things that's most surprised us about this, and this is a fairly new product, but we've nearly done 50 matters already, and one of the things that has most surprised us has been the amount of gratitude that the clients have had around it. We kind of thought that lawyers understood the pain of disclosure, but clients just didn't know what they were in for, so they wouldn't actually understand the bullet they had dodged. That's not been our experience at all. Clients have been overwhelmingly relieved and grateful. And I think something I didn't appreciate is the amount of dread that clients feel around having to provide disclosure. And I think that's half the reason it's so hard to get it. The other half is that they don't know where to get it from in the first place. But a lot of it is around procrastination. And obviously these are people who are in grief as well, so that doesn't help. And so just to reiterate something I mentioned at the start, this isn't just about lawyer effectiveness, it's about client experience as well. And this significantly improves the experience that your client has. All right, so we're on the front foot. We're ready to disclose. We've spent our 60 seconds doing this. Maybe we've had to add some items and we've blown the timeline out by a couple of minutes, but it's time to disclose. So you probably guessed already, having seen how it works, how you do that. I click the share disclosure button. I need to choose what I want to share. I may not want to share everything. I click that button. everything that's in the matter is there, all organised and laid out. By default, it's all ticked. Now, there might be things I don't want to share right now for various reasons. There might be a bit of argy-bargy going on around the value of the property, for example. So we might be getting a valuer for that. We'll just pull that out of there for now. We'll keep that one in our back pocket. Scroll to the bottom. We click Done. That disclosure is generated really quickly. There it is. 64 documents are shared. And then we choose who we want to share it with. So we just give access to whoever we want to be able to actually see it. Click that, and we can see what's being shared and who's actually seeing it. In fact, before we share it, we can also click this button to see what is actually being shared and see what the other side's going to see. Click that. This gives you a view from the other side of what they actually receive. And so what we should see is all of the things that we've just shared. There it is. And you can see it, bank accounts laid out really cleanly. Everything categorized and organized, able to be downloaded. And you might notice that there's no property there because we didn't share that. They don't see it. And obviously they can access these documents individually, just like you saw earlier. And the other side can also download them all in one hit. So you press the button and it's exactly what you saw before in terms of that zip file with all the documents prepared. The only difference being that the things you chose not to share are not in there. So there we are. We've spent a grand total of 90 seconds on this matter. We've got all our ducks in a row and we've disclosed to the other side. So that's it. You now know everything you need to know to start using one-click disclosure. So I warned you it was going to be a short demo. We're about to go to questions, but before we do so, I appreciate that what I just showed you might seem too good to be true. And so one of the reasons for that is because I wanted to give you a sense of what the experience is like as a lawyer in using the system. And so I didn't go into the nitty-gritty of how it actually works, how it's possible. So before we go to questions, what we might do is just jump back to the slides again. I just want to let you know how it works under the hood so it's really clear. So Adieu is a public accounting practice. When you press the Get Disclosure button, we generate an invitation to your client electronically that invites them to engage us as an accounting practice to help them provide their disclosure documents. It's a limited scope service. There's no advice in it. We simply provide documents to them. They sign that authority electronically and it comes back to us. That that engagement includes permission, or an authority rather, for us to share those documents with you as their lawyer in order to meet their family law disclosure obligations. They do a single use bank connection to allow us to access their statements. That uses a 256-bit encryption to secure their data so that can put your client's mind at ease. However, that's between us and the client and it has nothing to do with you as the lawyer. And we then use some very smart technology to go and gather information from a number of systems, collate it, prepare it, and we share it with the client and with you as the lawyer. So that's it. We designed one-click disclosure to have a really tiny footprint. So there's no contracts, there's no licenses, there's no servers, no credit card. You don't need training. It just works. You can set your firm up in less than 5 minutes. You can do your first one-click disclosure this afternoon. Just make sure you've okayed it with the client before you actually press the button, obviously. We charge $300 per matter. We've had feedback that we are undercharging. Oh, that includes GST, by the way. We've had some feedback that we're undercharging for that. We probably agree. However, as a social enterprise, one of the key things that we wanted in making this is we want something that's accessible to every client in every firm. We don't want this to be a specialist piece of technology that only a few people use. And so that's one of the reasons that we're keeping it at that kind of a price point. And that is pretty much it. So I think we're ready to go to questions. So let me just jump across. And we've got a couple here. Okay, we've got one. So how accurate have you found, I'm assuming you want me to read the questions out, guys. Just jump in if that's not correct. How accurate have you found the property details to be? How close does the estimated value come in compared to an appraisal or valuation through a real estate agent? Can you say that one?
Yeah. Okay, so for most valuers, the sources that we use which are basically designed for real estate agents, that would be their first port of call. The reason why we may have some questions on accuracy, as you do with valuations anyway, is if you have a property that is not a common property, or it's a specialist property, or it's a property that you actually need to see it to rate it, that decreases the accuracy. And so if you've got an inner city property and there's a lot of sales activity happening reasonably close to 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2 garages on 500 square metres, it will be more accurate. If it's a specialist type property or it's remote, it will be less accurate. But valuers would generally start with this as their starting point.
And I think and I guess as a more general principle, a lot of this stuff is a great starting point. It doesn't necessarily replace everything else you might have to do depending on how the matter goes or how complex the matter is. But as a starting point, it's fantastic. Next question. Is there a record that the documents have been shared with the other side? Yes, there is. And in fact, that's in that we're building out a new release, which should be live, by the end of the week. We're actually building out some more exciting things around that ongoing disclosure and making sure there's records of what's being disclosed, when it's being disclosed, whether it's been downloaded, whether it's been viewed. So yes, there is, and that's going to get a whole lot more sophisticated in the coming weeks as well. Who supports the end user, in brackets the client? If they have any questions or problems while trying to provide disclosure via Adieu, we do. And so what we like the lawyer to do, though, is so we typically have the client respond within a couple of hours. And we can then provide that disclosure sometimes same day if it happens early enough in the day, sometimes next day. Sometimes minority, but sometimes you have clients who don't get around to it. I'm sure you can imagine such a thing could happen. And in that case, we chase the client up. We support them. We do appreciate the lawyer helping as well, though, to give them a little kick. Can the system obtain documents of a related entity like a proprietary limited trust? I'll deal with that one.
Right. Okay, so we do disclosures for businesses, and we get information that's readily searchable, because the key to this is to be able to get information that is able to be got if you've got the skills and the access. So we would normally go and get an ABN report that tells us whether it's registered for GST, whether there's been any changes. We get the tax returns. From the tax returns and the BASs, we get a pretty good idea of what's happening. and as you do on their disclosure items as well. And we could arguably get bank statements as well. So we can do those three elements, but as a non-advice engagement, it would be the data only, and that would be $300 as well.
Yeah, so the business stuff is there. There's definitely value to be realised in that. It's not as mature as just the personal stuff yet. It's something we're experimenting a bit with at the moment, and as Bill mentioned, that's something we're going to come to market with in terms of a coherent business offering in the very near future. And as he mentioned, that will probably have its own cost as well. So you might pay $300 for the personal stuff. There's a business as well. Great, we'll do it for the business too. That might be another $300, or it might be less. We haven't actually priced that yet.
Yeah,
but that's in the pipeline.
It's in that order, and it's really got the same objective, that it's accessible to anybody, and it's not too expensive.
Questions are flying in. All right, lucky we've got plenty of time left, hey? I'm going to need to update the client's disclosure 3 or 6 months later. Again, something I'm sure you can imagine happens time to time. Possibly multiple times during that. Our updates include a $300 fee. So I mentioned before that we are, in the very near future, as in the next few weeks, hopefully, rolling out an ongoing disclosure element to this offering. That will include the ability to update data on demand. Will it be including $300? Probably not. That will probably be a small additional fee if you want the ongoing disclosure with it. Can we add categories of items not related to property, etc., if there are parenting proceedings also? That's a really good question, actually. We've been having discussions around that very thing earlier this week. At this very moment in time, no. But we're considering what to do around that. Particularly if it's something that you need to share through the disclosure stuff, we're going to need to create a bucket for it. So that's something we're going to have to solve in the very near future. What about getting disclosure relating to companies, trusts, etc.? I think we've covered that one already. How does the system know to fetch property, vehicle, tax return information? Yes, good, astute question. So the engagement form that's electronically sent to the client includes property and vehicles. All we need is the registration number of the vehicle, and we can map it from there, and we just need the address of the properties, and we do everything else from there. If you're midway through a matter, is there an update disclosure? Yes, there is. So we've covered that one. If the matter drags on, will the client be able to use update disclosure? Again, this seems to be a recurring theme. I'm glad that we've mostly built something to deal with that. Do you do property searches for real estate? Yes. So that's what we were talking about before.
Yeah, the question might be more, do you do an actual formal search? No, we don't. We can get the real property description, and I think that would give you the basis for a search, which is why we made sure that when we selected who we sourced data from, that it actually did include that description.
How long does the disclosure collection process run for? One-time collection, or can they add in bits and pieces over time as they collect more things? Kind of answered to a degree by the ongoing disclosure stuff, although I think, particularly if it's bank statements, that's covered. You can add your own stuff as they get new things or new items. It's mostly around the financial side of things that the ongoing disclosure is best for.
And I mean it's particularly pertinent for banks because when we get the data for the bank, it's like it's today.
Yeah. And so I guess in short, if the client acquires more things, you can add them to the pool yourself, and you can add documents.
And on that, anything in the pool is editable.
That's right.
So for example, we might put a value up of $640,000 for a property, supported by the RP data, and the clients might have agreed $700,000. You simply edit it.
Yep. Security of clients' data held by Adieu. What separates silos each matter a client from each other's files? So the data is stored on AWS using some of the highest levels of security. We only store data in Australian-based data centers, and we use Amazon's Cognito identity and access management systems to actually provide security for the data.
So that kind of puts us alongside, say, Leap.
Very similar thing.
Leap is the same place.
We have some other things that we go a little bit crazy for security. So, for example, when you share something with the other side, those links only last for 15 minutes, and then they're refreshed. And so, if you don't actually have a valid login or whatever the case might be, that expires in 15 minutes anyway. So we refresh every 15 minutes on the security measure. So yeah, security is very high and all locally stored. Oh, I thought we were at the bottom, but a bunch more coming. Does Adieu generate a PDF word disclosure list as a separate document I can print or edit? At the moment, it's a PDF. I think the desire to edit is quite universal as well, though. So I think that's something we'll be looking at in the very near future too. Word seems to be the tool of choice for most lawyers. So not yet is the answer to that one. When sharing with the other firm, do they receive the invite to create a login and then access the file? Yes, correct. And so the idea being only the people who you've shared it with can ever see it. And that's free, obviously. It only takes 10 seconds to set a password for themselves. And then we know who they are. We know they're allowed to access the document. And then some other things that we can add in the near future, like we know if they've actually downloaded it, things like that. How long is access to the documents available for after collection? For the life of the matter. So documents are there. I mean, the purpose of the tool isn't to be a data storage facility, so it's to get the stuff. As you've seen, you can pull it out, you can get it in your practice management systems. You don't really want to rely on us to store your data long term, but for the life of the matter, basically, is the answer to that. Have you thought about if you were to be issued a subpoena, produce documents, specifically, would you be able to claim privilege? Are you talking about Adieu as an entity here? Do you want to talk to this one? I mean, this is us as an accounting firm.
As an accounting firm, As an accounting firm, I think privilege wouldn't apply to us. But what the documents are, because there's no advice in there, is it simply is the documents, and those documents are provided to the client, and thereby to the legal practice. So, as I understand it, accounting firms can't claim privilege, but legal firms can. So, I guess the answer is no.
Yeah, and so this is something we're working with our professional body around as well, in terms of what our obligations are in terms of retention of documents as an accounting firm. And because it's a non-complex matter that's providing documentation only, we don't really have a lot of requirement to store documents. We don't really want to store documents any longer than we need to.
Yeah,
as well.
And so the line we're drawing is for the life of the matter.
Users and firms create logins. Is there two-factor authentication to protect logins? Is 2FA mandatory? Yes. Okay, so are we doing two-factor authentication yet? No, we're not. That is something we might consider turning on. Is there mandatory password complexity? Yes, there is. So we have a high requirement, high bar for the passwords in terms of special characters, capital letters, all that stuff. Symbol, yep. All the
number.
All that stuff, number, yep. All that stuff that makes it really hard to set a password. Now we're causing that angst for people as well. But it's important, right? Security. Yes. What happens to documents at the conclusion of the matter? We've kind of covered that off. So the idea is that you can export them really easily, get them into your practice management system. It's in your control, and you don't rely on us to store documents in any kind of long term after the matter's finished. Can a self-represented litigant use a service for themselves? Excellent question. Yes. So we thought right at the beginning of all this. In fact, a bit of trivia. We actually originally designed this as a way of agreeing the pool, and you exchange cards and you agree things and they change color, and it was actually a really lovely piece of work. But the disclosure as a need was just so much greater. And self-represented litigants were a major cause of the angst around disclosure, so we wanted to deal with that. And so we haven't done a lot of that in the 50 that we've done so far, but it's something that we think has a lot of potential. And so this actually ties into a slightly broader theme, which is this is most powerful. I mean, this is great when you use it by yourself, but this really goes to the next level when you can actually use it together. And we can do this for both sides. And you can get all that information in a very short period of time. Not something we've really explored that much yet, but I think that's going to be a big part of how this is used in the near future. And then there's a few things around that, like we need to make sure that the clients have provided informed consent that we will provide this service for both of them. It's a non-advice service, so there's not really a huge problem around conflict, but we have to manage it properly. We are on to the last question now for now. Can sharing access be time limited? Expire. So right now, no, that's not how it works. It's whoever you share it with for the life of the matter. Could we add that? Yeah, that wouldn't be that hard to add, actually. If that's something we hear from a number of firms, we might do that. One of the reasons that we don't time limit it is around ongoing disclosure. But as I mentioned, we are about to release a bunch of stuff around that. And so what we might end up doing around that is providing time limited access, which expires but is refreshed every time you update your disclosure automatically. Another one. Who invoices the client? Another good question. For the $300 fee, who pays it at the commencement of the matter? Okay, so the way we want this to work. So what we don't want to do, we're running something at that price. We don't want to run debtors. We don't want to be chasing people up for payment, things like that. So the way we want this to work, we've been pretty flexible about it so far, but the way we really want it to work going forward is the authority of the engagement that the client signs authorizes us to collect the money from the lawyer. It's a disbursement. So the lawyer just pays out of trust and gets it from the client later, or has already got it from the client. That's how we really want it to work.
Because we're really a third party providing a service.
Yep.
Thanks, Andrew and Bill. That was an amazing demonstration. It was really interesting to see how Adieu's one-click disclosure is providing a significantly better client experience and enabling lawyers to progress matters in a fraction of the time. A huge thank you to all of you who have attended today. On that note, we will draw to a close. As you know, the Centre for Legal Innovation is very much focused on these types of webinars, this type of information sharing, collaboration and experience exchange. We're all about practical solutions. There will be many more webinars coming up in the Legal Techy Tuesday series in 2020, so don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter or Facebook for announcements. We look forward to welcoming you back to one of our events, and thank you again very much for joining us today.